many of the repatriated items that have been coming to the IES museum. This one is a special case. This one is a Menelik Psalter. It was, like I said earlier, solicited by, Professor Getachew really tried hard to get it from the source. And Steve Delamarter, who's been digitizing our manuscripts for the past 4 years, is delivering it to us. He's going to the Ankobar Museum. Initially I had said no, because why are we conducting this press conference while the Psalter is going to another museum? But this is a museum that we had helped from the IES has been very supportive of that museum. A lot of our museum personnel had had gone to help establish the small museum at Ankobar, and the Menelik Psalter rightfully belongs to Ankobar. The palace, Menelik's palace, is there. There is a big resort now in Ankobar. A lot of people are visiting that site. So we agreed that the Psalter would go there, but will come on loan each time we need it to the IES. The Psalter is going to Ankobar next week with Dr. who is going to talk later, and Steve, who is going to talk next. To Ankobar next week, but we'll be back the following week for our exhibition, for the launch of the exhibition for the repatriated items. So I'll ask Professor Steve Delamarter, who's been really helping us here at the IES Museum, digitizing our manuscripts. It's almost at the end now. We've probably digitized about 1,500 Buranna parchment manuscripts and about 4,000 other unpublished manuscripts. So almost 5,000 items that he's helped digitize in these last 4 years with the IES. About 1,500,000 and something shoots or whatever, I don't know. I think that's actually exact number. That's the exact number. So he's been he's a friend of the IES and friend of Afromet, and I'll ask him to talk. Next.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Professor Steve Delamarter. I'm here on behalf of the owner of this Menelik Psalter. His name is Mr. Gerald Weiner. Gerald, Gerald Weiner in English. And it's through his generosity that this manuscript is being returned to Ethiopia. We should also make it clear that it is not one of the manuscripts that was at Magdala. Instead, it comes by other means. I came to Ethiopia for the first time in 2004. I met Dr. Elsabet and Dr. Demeke. I was studying scribes and their work in the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition here in Ethiopia. When I returned to America, I discovered that many manuscripts from Ethiopia had found their way to America. And I began to think these manuscripts, or at least images of these manuscripts, should be brought back to Ethiopia so that scholars in Ethiopia would have access to their own cultural heritage. I began a process of contacting owners and dealers, and since that time, in the last 4 years, we have digitized over 900 manuscripts and returned all of those images to the Institute of Ethiopian Studies and to His Holiness Abuna Paulos at the Patriarch's Library and Museum. I began to discover a group of dealers in the United States who had ownership of many, many manuscripts. And it was through their generosity. When I asked them, I went to each of them and I said, this is the cultural heritage of Ethiopia. Wouldn't it be good if we could return images to Ethiopia? And a bit to my surprise, many of them said, yes, that's a great idea. And they put their manuscripts into boxes. They mailed them to me in Portland, Oregon. And I and my colleague, Jeremy Brown, and others began the work of digitizing these manuscripts. Eventually, I was introduced to one particular man in Chicago, Illinois. This is Gerald Weiner. Gerald Weiner has accumulated the largest collection of Ethiopian manuscripts in private hands in North America. He has about 175 Ge'ez manuscript codices and about 400 as magic scrolls. He also has about 70 Arabic manuscripts from the Harar region, apparently. His intention originally was to invest in these manuscripts and to sell them. But over the last 3 or 4 years, his attitude towards the manuscripts began to change. He is himself a Jewish man and has a great appreciation for the cultural heritage of the people. And he began to realize that these manuscripts were very, very precious to the culture and the history of Ethiopia. And he decided last year to keep all of those manuscripts together and to give them to UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles, so that there's a large community of Ethiopians there, and it would make it possible for the manuscripts to be studied. So it was during my practice was to digitize these manuscripts and then go to Collegeville, Minnesota, a small town in the central part of the United States of America, because a very famous scholar lives and works there. His name is Professor Getachew Haile. He is now 80 years old, and for the last 35 years, he has been cataloging more manuscripts than any other 3 people in history. He is the most distinguished scholar. And when I had only a few manuscripts, I went to him and I showed him what I was doing. And he said, I would be glad to support you in helping to catalog these manuscripts. And so I began traveling to Collegeville, Minnesota, 2-3 times a year, working with Professor Getachew to catalog these manuscripts that we had digitized. Well, it was on one of those occasions that we were working through the 56th manuscript from Mr. Weiner in Chicago, Illinois, this manuscript here. And we noticed what a beautiful manuscript it was. The leather work is very, very nice. It has a headband and a tailband, which are deluxe features of the manuscript. It has a beautiful set of headings called harags that mark out the major sections of the manuscript. We noticed that the hand was very beautiful, a very well-trained hand. All of these things indicated that this was a manuscript that had been produced in the government scriptorium. We noticed also a seal here on the first page, and on folio 124 recto, I remember working with Professor Getachew and shining the image up on the wall, and we arrived at this page. And right here is this amazing inscription done in a technique that's quite rare. It says, Zamashafa Zanegus Nagasta Menelik. This book belongs to Emperor, King of Kings, Menelik. Forgive me for my butchering the S there. But, and Professor Getachew turned to me and he said, Steve, this is a national treasure. This is a national treasure. The personal Dawit of the Emperor Menelik. A few weeks later, he called me and he said to me, Steve, I've been in contact with one of my friends who's from the Ankobar region. His name is Engineer Terefe Raswark. He'll be speaking to you in just a few moments. And he's building a museum there to help preserve the culture and the crafts of the area of Ankobar. And he's trying to find people who will support him in that task. He asked, Professor Getachew said to me, he asked for financial support, but I didn't have that. But I told him that I would ask you if you would ask the owner if you would give this manuscript back. I said to Professor Getachew, I don't know. This is a very valuable manuscript. I've never asked an owner to give it back to Ethiopia before. I've always just taken the images back to Ethiopia. So I began to prepare a speech. It was about a 20-minute long speech, and I called Jerry Weiner up on the phone, and I began talking, and I'd only talked for about 2 minutes. And Jerry Weiner said, that's where it belongs. It belongs in Ethiopia. That's where it will go. And so I said, Mr. Weiner, this is an amazing, generous act on your part, and I will act as your representative to take it to Ethiopia. He would have brought it here himself, except that he has had surgery on his hips fairly recently, and he's unable to make the trip, but he sends his greetings.